This is Saudi Arabia, a country which spends billions on football clubs, Formula One races, and boxing matches. Is it really about the love for the game, or something far more strategic? Behind the glittering stadiums and star athletes lies a powerful question. Is Saudi Arabia using sports to reshape its global image? Think about it. Especially in the West, Saudi Arabia has a questionable reputation. Therefore, before we talk trophies and transfer fees, here's the baggage the Saudis bring to the pitch. In 2018, Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi was killed inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. A declassified US intelligence assessment concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman approved the operation. Beyond that, rights groups and UN bodies have long documented Saudi's actions in the Yemen war, including unlawful airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition that hit civilians and critical infrastructure. By the end of 2021, the UN Development Programme estimated the conflict's total death toll, directly and indirectly, at roughly 377,000. At home, the death penalty has surged. Saudi Arabia executed 81 people in a single day in March 2022. With that kind of baggage, repairing their image abroad became urgent. And that's where sports came in. Sports washing is a well-known tactic. In fact, it was widely used even 100 years ago. One of the most famous examples goes back to Nazi Germany's 1936 Berlin Olympics, where Adolf Hitler tried to present Germany as peaceful and modern, even while preparing for war. The same change was leveled against Qatar during the 2022 FIFA World Cup, which cost over $200 billion, including stadiums and infrastructure. Saudi Arabia has been leveraging it for years now, pouring billions and billions of dollars. But let's start from the beginning. Saudis have been in sport for years now, initially investing into horse racing in the early 2000s, but their involvement skyrocketed with the launch of Vision 2030 in 2016. The whole project focuses on reducing the country's dependency on oil, natural resources, and sooner or later, so Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman started Vision 2030 to diversify Saudi's asset portfolio. Their first major purchase was stake in the World Wrestling Entertainment (WWE), a 10-year hosting deal from 2018 to 2028 worth approximately $1 billion. But that was just the warm-up. 3 years later came the headline grabber, a world-famous acquisition, Newcastle United Football Club, and it was a genius investment. St. James Park had grown quiet. For years, Newcastle fans watched their beloved club slide down the table, weighted down by debt and despair. Then came the news, a takeover worth $410 million backed by Saudi Arabia. In this video, we're going to mention a lot of big deals, multi-billion-dollar deals, but I need you to understand one thing. It's not always about profit. Within hours after acquisition, the city erupted. Fans wrapped themselves in Saudi flags, others wore traditional robes, and chants of "We got our club back" echoed through the streets. That's exactly what new investors wanted. Good PR is worth more than money. And Newcastle wasn't a standalone case. Their next investment was nearly 15 times bigger. But let's take a step back and see who is actually making those purchases. Well, behind every deal stood the same player. PIF, or Public Investment Fund, is one of the largest state-owned investment funds in the world. They hold a total of $900 billion worth of assets in very different niches. If you hear about any Saudi mega project like Neom, the futuristic megacity, they're the ones responsible. They're also the institution that invests in all kinds of sports worldwide. Golf, $4.58 billion. Combat, $4 billion. Football, $1.5 billion. Or even Motorsport, $540 million. We're going to cover each of them, starting with the biggest one. In 2021, Saudi Arabia poured a little over $2 billion into LIV Golf just to get it off the ground. And how do you launch a brand new league in a sport that's already dominated by the PGA Tour? You don't start with rookies, you go after the biggest names in the game. That's why LIV signed major stars like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, and Cam Smith. Those signings instantly gave credibility and global attention to the brand. But here's the thing, it wasn't a one-time splash. LIV has become an ongoing investment project. Reports suggest that since 2021, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund may have poured as much as $5 billion and possibly more into the league. And that's not the end. In 2021, Saudi actually entered more than only one market. They took their shot at Formula One fans. The kingdom pays an estimated $55 million per year to secure the F1 Grand Prix on its soil. But here's more. PIF, alongside Aries Management, injected $540 million into McLaren Group as an equity investment. This is a unique case because they actually exited after 2 years. PIF sold its share for $400 million to Bahrain's sovereign wealth fund, Mutalakat, and there's a clear reason behind it. While McLaren is a big brand, just owning it doesn't bring so much visibility as hosting events or owning leagues. And it isn't only about owning football clubs, F1 and golf. They're willing to spend billions on players themselves, and no signing proved that louder than Cristiano Ronaldo's record-shattering $240 million a year deal. When Ronaldo landed in Riyadh, fireworks lit the night sky. Fans chanted his name as football's center of gravity had shifted overnight. But behind the spectacle, the numbers tell a different story. In just one transfer window, Saudi clubs spent close to $1 billion more than some of Europe's biggest leagues. In fact, this sets SPL at 4th place in terms of spending in the whole world, behind the Premier League with $3.12 billion, League One at $1.18 billion, and Serie A at $1.07 billion. By now, it shouldn't surprise you who own the majority of stakes in SPL clubs. That's right, PIF. But we're only talking about spending. What about returns? The Saudi Pro League lost over $1 billion in 2023 alone, showing how unsustainable the wage bill for megastars can be. Average match attendance fell by about 10%, down to roughly 8,321 fans per game, surprisingly low and signaling weak local engagement. In response, officials introduced stricter financial controls and are shifting towards privatization, laying the groundwork for a more sustainable football model and capping runaway losses. But even if they lose money, it's still all about PR. And while most of the investments aren't generating cash revenue, Newcastle United is making the money. In the 2023-24 season, Newcastle's revenue surged by 28% to $407 million, while commercial income nearly doubled, from $59.22 million to $112.55 million, thanks to sponsorships from Adidas, Saudi brands like Selah and Noon, and more. But Saudi Arabia isn't stopping here. They are already eyeing the 2034 World Cup, and rumors suggest they're planning to bid for the Olympics. If their sports strategy works, every major sporting event could have a price tag attached to geopolitical influence. At about the same time, combat sports also flourished in Saudi Arabia. Under the direction of Turki Al-Sheikh, Saudi Arabia has transformed Riyadh into the global epicenter of boxing. In 2024, the Kingdom Arena, the world's largest indoor arena, hosted the undisputed heavyweight championship showdown between Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. The kingdom paid about $120 million to bring the fight here, turning a patch of desert into the epicenter of the boxing world. For one night, every camera, every journalist, every fan was focused not on New York or London, but on Saudi soil. But as we already established, it's not only about cash. It's also about Saudi Arabia freshening up their image using sports washing. But is it working for them? Let's recap the investments. Saudis started with a WWE contract worth $1 billion in 2018, and now in 2025, 7 years later, we're looking at more than $10 billion invested into various sports, and the number keeps growing rapidly. The Saudi Pro League, while not yet profitable, has pulled in global stars, lifting the kingdom's profile and drawing attention from broadcasters and sponsors. On a national level, hosting Formula One, heavyweight boxing, and soon the 2034 FIFA World Cup brings international tourism and puts Saudi Arabia firmly on the map of global sports powerhouses. This aligns neatly with Vision 2030, which aims to diversify the economy beyond oil. In the end, Saudi Arabia's sports empire is a paradox. On paper, the numbers look brutal. Billions spent, stadiums still half empty, and losses climbing past $1 billion in a single season. By traditional business standards, it seems irrational and even reckless. But when you zoom out, the picture changes. These billions are not only buying footballers or fight nights, they're buying global headlines, political influence, and a new image for a kingdom racing to reinvent itself before the oil runs dry. History will decide whether this gamble becomes one of the boldest investments of the 21st century or one of the most expensive PR campaigns ever staged. Either way, one thing is clear. Saudi has turned sport into something far bigger than a game. By 2030, don't be surprised if half the world's biggest sporting events are hosted in countries using sports for soft power. Saudi Arabia didn't just change football, they changed the entire game of global influence.